All right, let's dive into one of the most useful tools you can have in your developer toolkit, the factory method design pattern. Seriously, this thing is key to writing code that's flexible, maintainable, and actually ready for whatever the future throws at it. So let's get into it.
You know the feeling, right? We've all been there. You get a request to add a new feature, you make what feels like a super simple change, and then everything else starts to fall apart. It's like a house of cards. Well, that's a classic sign of tightly coupled code, and it's exactly the kind of headache we're going to solve today.
So, to make this crystal clear, we're going to stick with a really simple, practical example. Just imagine you're building an app that has to create documents. Maybe a Word doc here, a PDF there. Seems easy enough, right? Well, how you handle that creation process, that makes all the difference.
Okay, so let's start with how most of us would probably tackle this at first, what I'm calling the direct approach. It's fast, it's intuitive, but trust me, it's hiding some real danger for your project down the road.
So you might write a line of code that looks just like this. And hey, it seems harmless, right? You need a Word doc, you just make a new Word document. Boom, done. But here's the catch. Your client code, the part of your app that uses this document, is now directly handcuffed to that specific Word document class. And that, my friends, is where the trouble starts. This one little line of code leads to some big problems. First, you get that tight coupling we talked about. Your code is now hardwired to one specific class, and that means you have zero flexibility. So when your boss comes along and says, hey, we need to add Excel documents now, you have to go back and change your client code. And if you're creating documents in 10 different places, guess what? You're making that change 10 times. Hello, massive code duplication. And this quote just hits the nail on the head. This isn't just some academic problem. It's a real-world maintenance nightmare. Every single time you want to add a new document type, you have to go on this treasure hunt through your code, finding every single spot an object is created and changing it. Your code becomes fragile, inefficient, and just a pain to work with. So, how do we escape this mess? Well, this is where the factory method pattern comes in to save the day. The whole idea is actually beautifully simple. We're going to separate the request for an object, the what you want, from the actual process of creating it, the how it's made. Okay, here's the textbook definition. It sounds a little formal, I know, but the magic words are right there. Let subclasses alter the type. So instead of our client code shouting, I need a new Word document, it's going to ask a creator class, hey, can I get a document? And it's the specific subclass of that creator that gets to decide what kind of document to actually build. Now, to make this work, we've got a cast of 4 key players. First is the product. Think of this as the blueprint, like an iDocument interface. Then you've got the concrete product, which is the real thing you're building, like our Word document. Next up is the creator, an abstract class that has the factory method in it. And finally, the star of the show, the concrete creator, like a Word document creator whose whole job is to implement that method and actually build our specific product.
So how does this all fit together when the code actually runs? Well, it's like a really simple, elegant dance. The client doesn't care about new Word document anymore. Nope. Instead, it just talks to a Word document creator and says, give me a document. That creator then calls its own special factory method, which knows exactly how to build a Word document, and it just hands it back. The client gets what it needs without ever knowing or caring about the nitty-gritty details.
Now, let's be real for a second. No design pattern is a silver bullet. And the factory method is no exception. It's incredibly powerful, but it's not always the right call. So let's talk about the trade-offs, weighing what you gain against the complexity you might be adding. So the benefits are pretty awesome. You hide away all the creation logic, you get this amazing flexibility to add new stuff later, and best of all, you don't have to change your existing client code. So what's the cost? Well, you're definitely adding more classes and interfaces to your project. For really, really simple cases, that might just be overkill. And this chart, it really sums up that central trade-off perfectly. You're basically sacrificing a little bit of initial simplicity. I mean, it is more work to set this up than just typing new, but in return, you get these huge, huge wins in long-term flexibility and extensibility. For any system that you expect to grow and change, that is a fantastic investment. Okay, for this last section, let's make this super practical. How do you actually know when the factory method is the right tool for the job you're facing, like right now? Now, a really good question you might have is, wait, what about those other creational patterns I've heard of, like builder or abstract factory? And that is a crucial point because picking the right pattern is all about matching it to the specific problem you're trying to solve. Look, the factory method has a very specific job description. It is not for creating whole families of related objects. That's what abstract factory is for. It's not for building one complicated object piece by piece. That's the builder patterns territory. And it's not for copying an object that already exists. You'd use prototype for that. Factory method is all about one thing: letting a subclass decide which single object class to create. So here are your green lights. You pull this pattern out when your client code just shouldn't need to know how an object gets made, or when you want different parts of your system to be able to create different kinds of objects. And most importantly, when you have that gut feeling that you're going to need to add new types of objects down the road without having to rewrite everything. And that really brings us to the bottom line. The factory method is your go-to solution when you need to unglue your system from the specific classes it has to create. It is a powerful, robust way to build systems that are just easier to maintain, easier to extend, and way more resilient to change over time. So I'll just leave you with this question. Take a look at the code you're writing right now. Where are you using that new keyword in a way that might just come back to bite you later? Which part of your project is just screaming out for the flexibility of a factory?